My name was called, and the only sound I heard was polite clapping from strangers because the two seats that were supposed to matter were completely empty. I was standing on my high school graduation stage, diploma in hand, scanning the crowd for my parents' front row center, exactly where they promised they'd be. But instead of watching me graduate, they were across town cheering for my younger brother's dog show. Not stuck in traffic, not late, they chose him. As I stepped down, my phone buzzed. A photo from my mom, Jake, holding a trophy, both of them smiling like nothing else existed. Then my principal leaned in and whispered, "Your family couldn't make it?" I looked at that photo, then at the empty seats again, and in that exact moment, I decided something I hadn't told anyone yet. The question wasn't judgmental. It was soft, almost careful, like he already knew the answer and didn't want to embarrass me. I swallowed and forced a smile. They had something come up. He nodded slowly, but his eyes flicked toward the empty seats again before he stepped back. That tiny pause said everything he didn't. I stepped off the stage and into a crowd of families wrapping their kids in hugs, handing out flowers, snapping pictures. A girl next to me burst into tears as her dad lifted her off the ground, spinning her around like she was 5 again. Someone's mom rushed past me holding balloons that said, "Congrats, grad." The air was loud, warm, full of celebration, and I was just standing there. My phone was still in my hand. I opened the photo my mom sent. Jake was grinning, holding up a gold trophy almost as big as his arm. Our parents stood on either side of him, beaming. My mom had even added a caption, "He did it, first place. We're so proud." There wasn't a single word about me. Not good luck, not "we'll be there soon," not even sorry. Just him. I zoomed in on their faces. They didn't look rushed. They didn't look distracted. They looked present, completely there. Like this was the only moment that mattered. A laugh slipped out of me before I could stop it. Quiet, sharp, wrong. Because suddenly everything made sense in a way it never had before. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't bad timing. It wasn't even about today. It was a choice, one they had been making for years. And for the first time, I wasn't going to pretend it didn't hurt. My fingers hovered over the screen. I opened our family chat, typed something, deleted it, typed again. Then I locked my phone because the truth was I had already done something they didn't know about. Something I had been sitting on, waiting for the right moment. And as I stood there surrounded by everyone else's celebration, I realized this was the moment, and what I was about to do next wasn't something they could undo. This didn't start at graduation. It just ended there. Growing up, my brother Jake was always the center of everything. Not because he was a bad person, he wasn't, but because my parents decided early on that his passions mattered more. Jake loved training dogs, competitions, obedience trials, agility courses. By the time he was 12, weekends weren't ours anymore. They were his. Every trip, every plan, every dollar somehow revolved around where Jake and his dog needed to be next. At first, I didn't question it. I told myself it made sense. He needed support. I was older. I was independent. That was the word my mom loved using. But independence started to feel a lot like being invisible. When I made the finals for a regional debate competition in my junior year, my parents promised they'd come. I remember saving them seats just like I did at graduation. But the morning of the event, Jake had a last-minute qualifying show. They chose him. Again, I stood on that stage alone, delivering arguments I had practiced for weeks, scanning the audience like I always did. And just like graduation, those seats stayed empty. When I got home, there was a "we're proud of you" waiting on the kitchen counter. No eye contact, no conversation, just words. Meanwhile, Jake got a full dinner celebration for placing third. Not even first. I tried to talk to them after that. I really did. One night, I sat across from them at the dining table and said, "I feel like I don't matter as much as Jake." My dad didn't even look up from his plate. My mom sighed and said, "Maya, You're strong. You don't need the same kind of attention. I remember staring at her, trying to understand how that was supposed to make me feel better. It didn't. And when graduation came closer, I made sure there was no confusion. I handed them the date, the time, even the exact row I'd be sitting in. My mom smiled, squeezed my hand, and said, "We wouldn't miss it." But 2 days before the ceremony, Jake qualified for a major dog show finals. Same day, same time. I watched the shift happen in real time. The hesitation, the glances, the quiet calculations. And the night before graduation, my dad finally said it. "We'll try to make both." I nodded slowly, even though we all knew that wasn't possible. So I just said, "Do what you think matters most." Then I stood up, went to my room, and opened my laptop. Because that was the moment I stopped waiting for them to choose me and started making a decision they would never see coming. By the time I woke up on graduation morning, I already knew. There was no good luck text, no knock on my door, no rushed apology about traffic, just silence. I got dressed alone, adjusted my cap in the mirror, and told myself not to check my phone. I checked anyway. My mom had posted a photo 30 minutes earlier, Jake standing in the middle of a ring, his dog mid-jump, both of them frozen in perfect focus. The caption read, "Finals day, let's go." They were already there. Not late. Not torn between two places. Just gone. At the ceremony, I sat between classmates whose families filled entire rows. Parents waving. Siblings calling out names. Phones raised, capturing everything. A teacher leaned down and asked me quietly, "Your family's on the way?" I forced a small smile. "Yeah, just running late." She nodded, but she didn't look convinced. When they started calling names, my heart began pounding, not from nerves, but from something heavier, something final. Maya Carter. I stood, walked across the stage, and for a split second, I let myself look. Same 2 empty seats. Same stillness. Same answer. I shook the principal's hand, smiled for the camera, and walked off like it didn't matter. But inside, something shut off completely. After the ceremony, my phone rang. "Mom." I answered. "Hey, sweetheart," she said, breathless, excited. "Jake won first place. You should have seen it. It was incredible." I didn't say anything. "We're thinking dinner tomorrow, okay? We'll celebrate you properly then." Properly. Like today didn't count. I stepped away from the crowd, my fingers tightening around my diploma. "Don't worry about it," I said calmly. There was a pause on the other end. "What do you mean?" I looked out at the parking lot, at families loading up cars, still celebrating. Because while they were planning a delayed celebration, I had already signed the one thing that made sure there wouldn't be one. And this time, they weren't going to get a second chance. That night, I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I pressed post. The video was barely 3 minutes long, but it had taken me months to put together. It opened with small moments. Clips from my debate finals, an empty chair beside me, a screenshot of a text, "Sorry, Jake's competition ran late." Then another and another. Different dates, same excuse. Then it cut to my birthday, me blowing out candles while my parents clapped half-heartedly, already talking about Jake's next show. And finally, graduation. A still frame of me on stage. 2 empty seats in the front row. My voice came in over it, steady but quiet. I kept telling myself it didn't matter, that I was being dramatic, that I should just be proud of him too. But today, I realized something. The video paused on that image. I wasn't asking for everything. I was asking to be chosen. Just once. Then it ended. No music, no hashtags, just that. Within an hour, messages started coming in. Friends, classmates, even teachers. "Maya, is this real? Why weren't they there? You didn't deserve that." By midnight, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. And then it rang. "Dad." I answered. "What is this?" he demanded. Not confused, angry. "You embarrassed us," my mom added in the background. I leaned against my bedroom wall, suddenly calm in a way I'd never felt before. I didn't embarrass you, I said. I showed what you chose. Silence. For the first time, they didn't have a response ready. Down the hall, I could hear them moving faster now, doors opening, voices rising, because everything they had ignored for years was finally catching up to them. And 3 days from now, I wouldn't be here to explain anything anymore. The next 3 days felt unreal. My video kept spreading, shared between classmates, then parents, then people I didn't even know. By the second day, even my aunt had called, asking, Maya, why didn't your parents go to your graduation? They didn't have a clean answer anymore. At home, everything shifted. My parents weren't dismissive, now they were desperate. My mom knocked on my door constantly. We made a mistake, she said one night, her voice cracking. We didn't realize how much it hurt you. My dad stood behind her, quieter than I'd ever seen him. We can fix this, he added. We'll make it right. But that was the problem. They thought this started at graduation. It didn't. I zipped up my suitcase and looked at them both. You had years to fix it. Neither of them spoke. Jake stayed mostly quiet through all of it until the night before I left. He found me in the kitchen, leaned against the counter, and said, I didn't know it was this bad. I studied his face. For the first time, he wasn't the center of anything, just a kid trying to understand. I know, I said, and I meant it. The morning I left, my parents stood by the door watching me carry my bags out. No calls? My mom asked softly. Not right now, I replied. It wasn't punishment. It was distance. I got in the car, drove away, and didn't look back. Weeks later, in my dorm room across the country, my phone buzzed again. We miss you. I read it, set the phone down, and for the first time in my life, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned because they cheered for the wrong moment, and I built a life where I didn't need them to cheer at all.